in the hushed cathedral of evening, where shadows dance like gentle prayers across your walls. There comes a moment when the world exhales, and in that exhale, we find ourselves at the threshold of something profound. Tonight, dear traveler of the inner path, we gather in this sacred space between waking and sleeping, between seeking and finding, between the chase and the surrender dot, before we begin our gentle journey into the heart of letting go. If you find solace in these whispered teachings, feel free to subscribe to this sanctuary of stories. Offer a soft like as you would place a flower upon an altar, and share in the comments where in this vast world you're listening from tonight. Your presence here, wherever you may be, adds another candle to our collective light. Imagine, if you will, the first cherry blossom of spring, how it does not struggle to bloom, does not force its petals open, does not compete with the other buds. It simply allows the warmth of the sun and the gentle passage of time to unfold what has always been waiting within. This is the way of surrender, the ancient wisdom we shall explore tonight. Picture now an old monk walking a forest path at twilight, his footsteps silent on the moss-covered stones. He carries nothing but the clothes on his back and a heart full of acceptance. With each step, he is not going anywhere in particular, yet arriving everywhere at once. The incense of wild jasmine curls through the air like visible prayers, and in the distance, temple bells ring not to call anyone to attention, but simply because it is their nature to ring, just as it is the nature of water to flow, of stars to shine, of the heart to beat without our constant instruction. This is where we begin tonight, in the space between effort and ease, between wanting and having, between the desperate chase and the profound peace that comes when we finally stop. Asterisk, asterisk. What? Is the sound of peace before thought enters the garden of the mind? This question hangs in the air like morning mist over a still pond, neither demanding an answer nor avoiding one. It simply exists, as all true questions do, not to be solved, but to be lived in the gentle darkness of this evening hour. As your body settles into the embrace of rest, consider this. If we let go of everything we think we need to chase, what remains? Not emptiness, as the hurried mind might fear, but fullness beyond measure. The fullness of being rather than becoming, the richness of presence rather than the poverty of constant pursuit. There is a temple hidden in the mountains of Tibet, where the monks have practiced for centuries the art of non-pursuit. They do not chase enlightenment like a cat chases a beam of light across the floor. Instead, they sit in the morning sun, they tend their garden, they prepare their simple meals. They walk their paths of stone and earth. And in this not chasing, not forcing, not demanding, they discover that what they thought they needed to seek was already here, had always been here, waiting patiently like a devoted friend. The morning glory opens its face to the dawn, not because it has worked hard to earn the sunrise, but because opening is its nature. The stream flows around the boulder, not because it has figured out the secret of water, but because flowing is what streams do. The butterfly emerges from its chrysalis, not because it has mastered the art of transformation, but because becoming is the butterfly's birthright. And you, dear listener, breathing softly in the sanctuary of this moment, you too have a nature that unfolds not through chase, but through allowance, not through grasping, but through opening, not through the frantic energy of pursuit, but through the gentle power of surrender out in the Zen gardens of old Japan. There is a practice called effortless effort, the art of caring for the garden without trying to make the flowers bloom faster, without pulling the weeds in anger, without forcing the stones to find their perfect places. The gardener works with hands that know when to act and when to wait, with a heart that understands the difference between tending and controlling. This evening, as the world outside your window settles into its own rhythm of rest, notice how the darkness does not chase away the light, but simply allows night to be night. Notice how your breath does not demand to be breathed, but flows in and out like a gentle tide. obeying laws older than thought, deeper than desire. What would it be like to live like this? To move through your days like that monk on the forest path, not rushing toward some distant salvation, but finding the sacred in each step? To tend your life like that effortless gardener, caring deeply while holding lightly, participating fully while grasping nothing? The ancient teachers speak of Wu Wei, action without forcing, movement without violence, participation without desperation. It is the way of the river that carves the grandest canyons, not through aggressive force, but through persistent, patient flow. It is the way of the tree that grows toward the light, not by struggling against the earth, but by rooting deeply into darkness. Tonight, as we explore together this path of surrender, let us walk like that monk, garden like that tender of stones and flowers, flow like that patient stream. Let us discover what emerges when we stop chasing, what arrives when we cease our desperate reaching, what unfolds when we finally trust the wisdom of not knowing, the power of allowing, the profound intelligence of letting go. Asterisk, asterisk, in the soft light of oil lamps that flickered 2,500 years ago, a prince named Siddhartha sat beneath a tree and made a discovery that would ripple through countless hearts across the centuries. He found that the end of suffering was not in getting what we chase, but in understanding why we chase at all. That the Buddhist's first teaching after his awakening was like dew falling on parched earth, gentle, nourishing, arriving exactly when needed. He spoke of the Four Noble Truths, not as commandments carved in stone, but as observations as natural as noticing that water flows downhill. Life contains suffering, he observed, the way a garden contains both roses and thorns. This suffering often comes from our thirst, our constant reaching for what we don't have, our pushing away of what we don't want. But here, in this third truth, comes the gentle revolution that changes everything. This suffering can end, not through getting everything we want, but through understanding the nature of wanting itself. And the fourth truth, the path to this understanding, is not a rigid highway, but a gentle eightfold path that winds through the landscape of a life lived with awareness, compassion, and wisdom. Imagine sitting by a fire with the Buddha himself, not the golden statue in a temple, but the man who discovered that happiness is not a destination, but a way of traveling. He might say, in words soft as summer rain, when you stop chasing happiness, you discover you have been carrying it with you all along, like a traveler who searches everywhere for the glasses that sit upon his own nose. From the mountains of Tibet comes the teaching of Padmasambhava, the lotus-born teacher who brought Buddhism to the land of snow and sky. He taught that our true nature is like the sky, vast, unchanging, untroubled by the clouds that pass through it. The clouds are our thoughts, our emotions, our endless desires and fears. They come and go like weather, but the sky remains. When we stop chasing the clouds, trying to hold on to the pleasant ones and push away the stormy ones, we realize we are the sky itself, spacious, peaceful, already perfect. In Japan, a monk named Dogen taught the practice of just sitting, shikantaza. Not sitting to achieve enlightenment, not sitting to become someone special, not sitting to fix anything or get anywhere. Just sitting, like a mountain sits, like a tree sits, like the earth sits in space, not going anywhere, yet moving in perfect harmony with the cosmos. This is the teaching of non-seeking, of finding the extraordinary in the ordinary, of discovering that what we are looking for is what is already looking. The ancient text of the Tao Te Ching whispers to us across the centuries. The sage does not attempt anything very big and thus achieves greatness. Like water, the sage flows around obstacles rather than attacking them. Like the valley, the sage receives all things without judgment. Like the moon, the sage reflects light without claiming to be the source. From the caves of ancient India comes the teaching of Nagarjuna, who showed that all things are empty of independent existence, not empty like a hollow shell, but empty like a dance is empty of dancer, like a song is empty of singer. Everything arises in dependence upon everything else, like notes in a symphony, like colors in a sunset. When we understand this interdependence, we stop trying to possess and control, and instead learn to participate in the vast dance of existence. The Heart Sutra, chanted in monasteries around the world, tells us, form is emptiness, emptiness is form. This is not a riddle to solve, but a truth to live. The mountain is solid and real, yet it is empty of permanent, independent existence. It arose from the earth's movements, will one day return to dust, exists in relationship to the valley, the sky, the rain, the roots of trees. The mountain is magnificent precisely because it is not separate from everything else. In the stillness of this evening, as these ancient teachings settle into your heart like seeds into fertile soil, notice how they point not to complicated practices or difficult achievements, but to the simple recognition of what is already here. The peace you seek is not hiding at the end of a long journey. It is the ground you walk on, the air you breathe, the awareness in which all experience arises and passes away. In the stillness of this evening, as these ancient teachings settle into your heart like seeds into fertile soil, notice how they point not to complicated practices or difficult achievements, but to the simple recognition of what is already here. The peace you seek is not hiding at the end of a long journey. It is the ground you walk on, the air you breathe, the awareness in which all experience arises and passes away. These teachings come to us like gifts from our oldest friends, not to burden us with more things to do, but to remind us of what we have forgotten, that we are already whole, already connected, already home. The chase ends not when we catch what we are running after, but when we realize we are already where we need to be. ***. Let me tell you a story that drifts to us like incense smoke from a temple courtyard in old Kyoto, where the maple leaves fell, like letters written in crimson ink, and time moved with the gentle rhythm of temple bells. There once lived a monk named Takuan, whose name meant pickled radish, a humble name for a man who would become one of Japan's most beloved teachers. But this story takes place long before he was known for his wisdom, when he was just a young monk with restless feet and a heart full of questions. Takuan had been studying for years in the monastery, practicing zazen meditation until his legs ached, memorizing sutras until his head buzzed like a beehive, following every rule and ritual with the precision of a master calligrapher. Yet still, enlightenment eluded him, like a butterfly that lands everywhere, except where his grasping hands could reach. One autumn evening, as the persimmons hung heavy on the trees, and the first frost silvered the temple garden, Takuan approached, his teacher with frustration weighing on his shoulders like stones. "Master," he said, bowing deeply, "I have followed every teaching, practiced every meditation, observed every precept. Why does awakening not come to me?" The old master, whose eyes held the quiet depth of mountain lakes, smiled gently. "Show me your effort," he said simply. Takuan demonstrated his perfect posture, his controlled breathing, his disciplined mind. He recited sutras flawlessly, moved through walking meditation like a dancer, and explained the finest points of Buddhist philosophy with scholarly precision. The master nodded slowly. "Beautiful," he said. "Now show me your non-effort." Takuan paused, confused. "I don't understand, master." "Of course you don't," the master replied kindly. "Come, walk with me." They walked together through the temple grounds as evening settled around them like a soft blanket. The master said nothing, did nothing special, simply walked as if he had nowhere to go and all the time in the world to get there. They paused by the pond where lotus flowers floated like small moons on dark water. "Watch the lotus," the master said softly. "Does it struggle to bloom?" Does it force its petals open? Does it compete with its neighbors for beauty? Tokuan watched the flowers floating serenely, their petals naturally unfolding in the gentle evening air. No, master. It simply ... is. And yet, the master continued, has any flower ever been more perfect? They walked on in comfortable silence. Past the vegetable garden where cabbages grew round and patient, past the grove of bamboo that swayed like dancers in the evening breeze, past the old stone lantern that had stood faithfully for centuries. Lighting the way for countless seekers. At the temple gate, they encountered a traveling merchant whose cart had broken down. Without hesitation, the master set down his meditation beads and helped the man repair his wheel. He worked with complete attention, not because he had to, not because it was his duty, but because this was simply what the moment called for. When the merchant thanked him and continued on his way, the master turned to Takuan. Did you see enlightenment? In the lotus? He asked. I saw natural perfection, Takuan replied. Did you see enlightenment in the bamboo? I saw graceful acceptance. Did you see enlightenment in helping the merchant? Takuan paused, understanding beginning to dawn like sunrise through morning mist. I saw ... compassion in action, without thought of reward or achievement. The master smiled. Then where will you look for it next? And in that moment, Takuan understood. He had been chasing enlightenment like a man chasing his own shadow. The faster he ran, the faster it ran away. But when he stopped running, when he stood still and turned around, he found that the light had been with him all along. From that night forward, Takuan practiced what he came to call the way of no seeking. He still meditated, but not to achieve anything. He still studied, but not to accumulate knowledge. He still served, but not to earn merit. He simply lived each moment as it came, responding to life with the same natural perfection as the lotus blooming, the bamboo bending, the breath flowing in and out without his management. Years later, when students would ask him about the secret of awakening, he would laugh gently and say, "The secret is that there is no secret. The treasure you seek is the seeking itself. When the seeking becomes soft as morning dew, natural as breathing, effortless as the way water flows downhill." In the quiet of this evening, as this story settles into your heart like a seed into rich earth, notice how it points not to more doing, but to a different kind of being. Not the frantic energy of pursuit, but the gentle power of presence. Not the violence of grasping, but the wisdom of receiving what is already here. The teaching comes to us like that evening breeze in the temple garden, not demanding our attention, but simply offering its gift to any heart open enough to receive. It ... now, dear traveler, as the world outside settles into its nightly rhythm of rest, we turn our attention inward, toward the vast inner landscape where the greatest discoveries await. Not discoveries of new territories, but the recognition of what has always been here, what has been waiting patiently like a faithful friend for us to remember. Close your eyes gently, if you wish, like lotus petals folding at twilight, or simply let your gaze soften, unfocused, like looking at candlelight through gauze. There is no right way to do this, no perfect posture to achieve, no special state to reach. There is only this moment, this breath, this gentle turning toward the one who breathes. Notice your breath now, not to control it, but to greet it like meeting an old friend. Each inhale arrives like a gift you did not have to earn. Each exhale releases like a prayer you did not have to compose. The body knows this rhythm deeper than thought, older than memory, more reliable than any promise the mind might make. With each breath, you are not becoming more spiritual, not getting closer to some distant goal. You are simply becoming more aware of what is already here, the awareness itself, the one who notices the breath, the space in which all experience arises like clouds in an endless sky. Feel your body now, not as something you possess, but as something you inhabit, like a bird resting in a tree. Notice how the body rests without your instruction, how the heart beats without your management, how the countless cells of your being work in harmony without your supervision. This is the wisdom of non-doing, the intelligence of allowing, the profound trust that life knows how to live itself. Now let your attention drift inward, like a leaf floating on the surface of a still pond. Notice the thoughts that arise in your mind, not as problems to solve or enemies to fight, but as visitors passing through the vast guest house of awareness. Some thoughts are familiar, like old friends who have visited many times. Others are strangers, carrying unknown gifts. All are welcome. All are temporary. All arise and pass away in the same spacious awareness that remains unchanged. You are not your thoughts, any more than the sky is the clouds that pass through it. You are not your emotions, any more than the ocean is the waves that play upon its surface. You are not your memories, any more than the mirror is the images that appear and disappear in its depths. You are the awareness in which all of these arise, the consciousness that knows without being known, the presence that is always present. In the deepest teachings of the Buddha, this awareness is called the deathless element, not because it lasts forever in time, but because it exists outside of time altogether. It is not born and does not die, does not come and does not go, does not increase and does not decrease. It simply is, like the space that contains all things while being touched by none. This awareness needs nothing, seeks nothing, chases nothing. It is already complete, already perfect, already free. It is not something you have to develop or achieve or earn. It is what you already are, what you have always been, what you could never stop being even if you tried. Feel this now, not as an idea to understand, but as a reality to rest in. You are the vastness in which all experience unfolds. You are the silence in which all sounds arise. You are the stillness in which all movement dances. You are the peace that passes understanding, not because it is complicated, but because it is too simple for the mind to grasp. As you breathe, let yourself sink deeper into this recognition, like settling into a warm bath, like melting into the embrace of unconditional love. There is nothing to do here, nowhere to go, nothing to achieve. There is only the gentle recognition of what is already true, what has always been true, what will always be true. This is the end of chasing, dear friend, not because you have caught what you are seeking, but because you have recognized that you are what you are seeking. You are the treasure hidden in the field of your own being. You are the jewel in the lotus of your own heart. You are the light that has been searching for itself in the darkness of forgetting. Rest here now, in the gentle recognition of your own true nature. Let the seeking dissolve like sugar in water. Let the chasing end like a river reaching the sea. Let the journey complete itself in the discovery that you never left home. Asterisk, asterisk, in the hidden corners of ancient wisdom, where the most profound truths often wear the simplest clothes, there exists a collection of gentle surprises that can stop the heart in the most beautiful way. These are the teachings that arrive not with fanfare, but with the soft footsteps of dawn, not with complicated explanations, but with the sudden recognition of what has always been obvious. There is a story, whispered in the monasteries of Tibet, of a master who spent 30 years seeking the answer to a single question. What is the Buddha? Students would come to him with elaborate theories, complex philosophical frameworks, detailed explanations drawn from years of study. And to each one, he would simply smile and say, "That is not it." One day, a young monk approached him with empty hands and a quiet heart. "Master," he said, "I have nothing to offer you. I have studied nothing, achieved nothing, understood nothing. What is the Buddha?" The master looked at him with eyes that held the depth of mountain lakes and said, "The Buddha is the one who just asked that question." In that moment, the young monk understood what 30 years of seeking had not revealed. The Buddha is not a distant figure to be worshipped or a state to be achieved, but the very awareness that seeks, the very consciousness that questions, the very presence that is always already here. From the Zen gardens of Japan comes another hidden jewel, the teaching of the empty cup. A professor of philosophy, his head filled with theories and his heart heavy with questions, came to a Zen master for instruction. The master invited him for tea and began to pour. The cup filled, but the master continued pouring. The tea overflowed, spilling onto the table, dripping to the floor. "Stop!" cried the professor. "The cup is full. No more will go in." The master smiled gently. "Yes, and like this cup, you are full of your own opinions and preconceptions. How can I teach you until you first empty your cup?" The professor sat in silence, and in that silence, something shifted. The cup of his knowing emptied, and in that emptiness, wisdom could finally find a place to rest. In the caves of ancient India, where the first Buddhist monks sought the deepest truths, there lived a hermit who had achieved great reputation for his wisdom. Pilgrims would journey for months to ask him the secret of enlightenment. For years, he would give elaborate teachings, complex meditations, detailed instructions for the path. But one day, after decades of teaching, he was asked the same question by a simple villager. And instead of speaking, the hermit simply smiled. The villager looked into that smile and found everything he had been seeking, not in words or concepts, but in the pure presence that shines behind all words, the awareness that illuminates all thoughts. From that day forward, the hermit was known not for his teachings, but for his silence. Students would come from far and wide just to sit in his presence, to taste the peace that required no explanation, to drink from the well of wisdom that flowed without words. Here is a secret that hides in plain sight. The deepest spiritual truths are not complex philosophical systems, but the simplest recognitions. The sound of one hand clapping is not a riddle to solve, but a pointing to the space before thought creates division. The original face you had before your parents were born is not a metaphysical puzzle, but the timeless awareness that looks through your eyes right now. In the teachings of the Heart Sutra, we find the most surprising truth of all. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. This is not a denial of the world, but a recognition of its true nature. The mountain is empty of independent existence, yet it is magnificently present. The flower is empty of permanent self, yet it blooms in perfect beauty. You are empty of the solid, separate self you imagine yourself to be, yet you are more real, more present, more vividly alive than ever. The Buddha himself, in his final teaching, pointed to this hidden truth. All conditioned things are impermanent. Work out your salvation with diligence. But the secret hidden in this teaching is not in the working, but in the recognition that salvation is not something to be achieved, but something to be uncovered, like brushing dust from a mirror that was always perfectly reflective. In the Tibetan tradition, there is a practice called sky gazing, not trying to see anything in particular, but simply resting in the vastness of open space. As you gaze into the endless blue, something remarkable happens. The boundaries between inner and outer begin to dissolve. You realize that the space you are looking at is not different from the space you are looking from. The sky outside is the same sky inside. The vastness you behold is the vastness you are. This is the gentle surprise that awaits every seeker. What you are looking for is what is looking. What you are seeking is what is seeking. What you are chasing is what is chasing. The lover, the beloved, and the love are not three but one. The seeker, the sought, and the seeking are not separate, but one seamless movement of consciousness knowing itself. Tonight, as you rest in the gentle darkness of this hour, let these hidden truths settle into your heart like snowflakes on warm ground. They do not require understanding, only receiving. They do not demand practice, only recognition. They are gifts that have been waiting for you since before you were born, treasures that have been yours since before time began. Asterisk in the quiet hours before dawn, when the world holds its breath between darkness and light, there exists a profound mystery that the ancient teachers discovered through lifetimes of gentle investigation. It is the mystery of suffering, not as a problem to be solved, but as a teacher to be welcomed, not as an enemy to be defeated, but as a doorway to understanding. Buddha, in his infinite compassion, did not promise to eliminate all pain from human existence. Instead, he offered something far more precious, the recognition that suffering and pain are not the same thing. Pain is the inevitable companion of having a body, a heart, a mind that encounters the world. But suffering, that is the story. We tell ourselves about the pain, the resistance we create, the ways we fight against what is already here. Imagine a river flowing toward the sea. When it encounters a boulder in its path, it does not suffer about the boulder. It does not create elaborate stories about why the boulder shouldn't be there, or how life would be perfect if only the boulder would move. The river simply flows around the boulder, and in doing so, it carves beauty from the stone, creates music from the obstacle, finds its way home despite the apparent impediment. But we human beings, with our magnificent and sometimes troublesome minds, we do something quite different. We encounter the boulder and immediately begin to suffer. We resent the boulder. We demand that it move. We create entire narratives about how the boulder proves that life is unfair, that we are unlucky, that God has abandoned us. We exhaust ourselves pushing against the boulder, trying to force it out of our way, forgetting that there are countless other paths the river of our lives could take. The first arrow of pain may strike us. This is inevitable. The loss of a loved one, the failure of a dream, the illness of the body, the betrayal of trust. These are the natural seasons of human existence, no more to be avoided than we can avoid winter or night. But the second arrow, the arrow of suffering, this we shoot at ourselves. This is the refusal to accept what has already happened, the endless replay of how things should have been different, the bitter story we tell ourselves about what this pain means about us, about life, about the future. In the temple gardens of old China, there is a species of bamboo that grows in the most curious way. For years, it appears to make no progress at all. While other plants around it flourish and bloom, the bamboo remains small, seemingly stunted, showing no signs of the magnificence it will become. But beneath the surface, invisible to the casual observer, it is growing an elaborate root system, preparing for its moment of emergence. Then, almost overnight, the bamboo shoots up. Not inches, but feet. Not slowly, but with breathtaking speed. In a matter of weeks, it reaches its full height, tall and graceful and strong. The years of apparent stagnation were not wasted time, but preparation time. The bamboo was becoming what it needed to become, building the foundation for the spectacular growth that would follow. This is the nature of the spiritual path, dear friend. We encounter seasons of difficulty, periods that seem devoid of progress, times when the very practices that once brought us peace now seem hollow or ineffective. We suffer about our suffering, worry about our worry, become discouraged about our discouragement. But beneath the surface, like the bamboo's hidden root system, something profound is happening. We are developing resilience, compassion, wisdom, the very qualities that will allow us to shoot up into the light when the time is right. The ancient teachers speak of the dark night of the soul, not as a punishment or a sign of failure, but as a necessary passage, a sacred emptying that makes room for new understanding. Like the field that must lie fallow before it can bear fruit, like the tree that must lose its leaves before it can bloom again, we sometimes must pass through the darkness of not knowing before we can emerge into the light of deeper wisdom. In the Tibetan tradition, there is a practice called feeding the demons, not literal demons, but the difficult emotions, the painful patterns, the aspects of ourselves we have been running from. Instead of trying to destroy these demons, we invite them closer. We ask them what they need, what they are trying to protect, what gift they might be carrying in their fearsome claws. Often, we discover that our demons are not enemies, but misguided protectors. The demon of anger may be trying to protect our sense of justice. The demon of fear may be trying to keep us safe. The demon of sadness may be honoring what we have loved and lost. When we stop fighting these aspects of ourselves and start listening to them with compassion, they often transform from obstacles into allies. This is the garden of peace that grows in the soil of acceptance. Not the peace of having everything go our way, but the peace of being able to meet whatever comes with an open heart. Not the peace of avoiding all difficulties, but the peace of knowing that we have the strength to meet difficulties with grace. Not the peace of understanding everything, but the peace of being able to rest in the mystery of not knowing in this garden. Suffering is not the enemy, but the compost that feeds the flowers of wisdom. Pain is not a mistake, but a teacher that schools us in compassion. Difficulty is not a sign that we are on the wrong path, but evidence that we are human, that we are alive, that we are capable of growth and transformation. Tonight, as you rest, in the gentle embrace of this understanding, let yourself feel the profound relief that comes from no longer having to be perfect, no longer having to have all the answers, no longer having to make sense of everything that happens. You are not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. You are not a machine to be fixed, but a flower to be allowed to bloom in its own time, in its own way, in its own perfect imperfection. The ancient teachers speak of the dark night of the soul, not as a punishment or a sign of failure, but as a necessary passage, a sacred emptying that makes room for new understanding. Like the field that must lie fallow before it can bear fruit, like the tree that must lose its leaves before it can bloom again, we sometimes must pass through the darkness of not knowing before we can emerge into the light of deeper wisdom. In the Tibetan tradition, there is a practice called feeding the demons, not literal demons, but the difficult emotions, the painful patterns, the aspects of ourselves we have been running from. Instead of trying to destroy these demons, we invite them closer. We ask them what they need, what they are trying to protect, what gift they might be carrying in their fearsome claws. Often, we discover that our demons are not enemies, but misguided protectors. The demon of anger may be trying to protect our sense of justice. The demon of fear may be trying to keep us safe. The demon of sadness may be honoring what we have loved and lost. When we stop fighting these aspects of ourselves and start listening to them with compassion, they often transform from obstacles into allies. This is the garden of peace that grows in the soil of acceptance. Not the peace of having everything go our way, but the peace of being able to meet whatever comes with an open heart. Not the peace of avoiding all difficulties, but the peace of knowing that we have the strength to meet difficulties with grace. Not the peace of understanding everything, but the peace of being able to rest in the mystery of not knowing. In this garden, suffering is not the enemy, but the compost that feeds the flowers of wisdom. Pain is not a mistake, but a teacher that schools us in compassion. Difficulty is not a sign that we are on the wrong path, but evidence that we are human, that we are alive, that we are capable of growth and transformation. Tonight, as you rest, in the gentle embrace of this understanding, let yourself feel the profound relief that comes from no longer having to be perfect, no longer having to have all the answers, no longer having to make sense of everything that happens. You are not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. You are not a machine to be fixed, but a flower to be allowed to bloom in its own time, in its own way, in its own perfect imperfection.